Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey and Sean. Craig, we gave him the day off after he broke the André Tourigny news last night.
Yeah, a step late.
Yeah, which we will get into for the rest of the show. But before we get into Bear and his contract extension, we're super excited to welcome in NHL.com senior fantasy editor Pete Jensen to talk a little bit of fantasy hockey. Pete, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Second year in a row. It was a blast coming on last year, and I'm even more optimistic about the Coyotes from a fantasy standpoint this season. So just a little preview here. You're going to hear a lot of good things. I think this could be maybe the most exciting Coyotes roster that they've assembled, maybe ever. That's my personal opinion, but I'm excited about the ceiling.
Hot take.
Right off the top. I love it. Before we're going to ask you about Coyotes players, which Coyotes players have fantasy value, forwards, goalies, etc. Just in general, for those who are interested in fantasy hockey, just to summarize it, what's just a good strategy to draft a fantasy hockey team? Like what should be your strategy going into your fantasy draft?
Well, early on, you're going to want to hit on those 100-point scorers. There have been a lot more of them in recent years, so you definitely don't want to swing and miss like a lot of people did last season, let's say, on Jonathan Huberdeau, late first, early second round. Every once in a while, something with a new change of scenery. That's one thing I would say. Like, don't go too crazy about a guy that changed in the offseason, because sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it doesn't even end up working out at all, and then that player changes teams again the following season. So don't get too wrapped up in that. Take your safe picks early on, and then as it gets more interesting in the middle rounds, like look for those bargains. We're going to identify them on our podcast, NHL Fantasy on Ice, all off season long in September and October. The bargains based on average draft position, like where are these guys going? Should they be going higher than where they actually are? That's a huge thing in the middle rounds. And then late rounds, it's all those breakout sleepers, the rookies out there like Logan Cooley, I'm really excited about, Sean Durzi. Those type of guys fall into the sleeper category.
First, I want to know how I get the title senior fantasy editor on my title. I got to work on that. But in seriousness, so this is an interesting thing. We talked about Connor Bedard. Do you draft, or can you draft players that are on bad teams? And the player I look to the most this season is Connor Bedard. I mean, he's going to be on a bad team. Can you still get value in drafting players from bad teams?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're on the first power play, I mean, they're going to put up 20 plus power play points relative to where they're going in a draft, like pretty late. Like a lot of people think the Sharks are going to be bad this year because they traded Karlsson to the Penguins. But that's not to say that guys like proven guys like Tomas Hertl, Logan Couture, even a young kid on the block like William Eklund, those guys could score 55, 60, 65 points. And maybe will hurt you a little bit in the plus minus category, but really produce in almost every category playing for a not so hot team. So to answer your question, I would not steer clear of some of those lower tier teams, because you could get a lot of fantasy value from them, especially if your league doesn't count plus minus against you. Then you're really talking, then you're diving into the Trevor Zegras and, some of the other teams out there, Johnny Gaudreau, Patrick Laine, Adam Fantilli, the rookie, if he makes the team for Columbus, even some of those guys on Philly, like Travis Konechny, if plus minus doesn't work against you, that could be a really, really valuable pick in your late rounds.
You just mentioned rookies, and I want to ask, obviously it's risky drafting rookies. A player like Connor Bedard, is a little bit of the exception, but generally where in your draft should you be targeting rookies? And I guess my second part of that question would be, where does Logan Cooley rank among this year's rookies?
So Connor Bedard is an exception to the rule. I'll usually say, don't take a rookie inside the top 100 overall. Even like Devin Levi, the goalie for the Sabres, I expect the Sabres to make a big jump this year. He's the second ranked rookie behind Bedard, but we have him at 101 in our rankings. We're not getting too in over our heads with him, because Again, it's a team that hasn't made the playoffs in over a decade and stuff like that. Cooley, we have ranked 4th among rookies at the moment, behind Connor Bedard and Devin Levi and Luke Hughes, the defenseman. But again, I wouldn't be surprised, especially if the wheels fall off around Connor Bedard and he doesn't have the supporting cast. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cooley put up 55, 60 points, and maybe Bedard puts up 65 or 70, and maybe we're talking about a little race here. So I think that Bedard is, everybody's calling him the lock to win the Calder, and that may be true, but whether it's Levi, Luke Hughes, or Cooley, I think we could have an interesting race as the season goes on. But with Connor Bedard, I mentioned he's an exception to the rule. I mean, we have him in the top 50 overall players, despite those team concerns that you mentioned just before. So that speaks a lot to the caliber of the prospect, historically speaking, and just the upside he has from the get-go with Taylor Hall and Seth Jones and a top-heavy team, let's say, in Chicago.
I want to make it real quick. I'm going to apologize for something I did on the internet, and it was targeted. I forget there's actual people on the internet. Sometimes it's just words. The NHL Fantasy put out these rookie ratings with Bedard, Levi, Hughes, Matty Nyes. The name we didn't see on there was Logan Cooley, so I was a smartass, and I said, someone missing, smartass, and then you responded with, he's been added after he signed his contract because he hadn't signed yet. So I was a smartass. I apologize, Pete. I didn't mean to. I was just, Coyotes fans at it again. So I want to apologize to you on the air. But having said that now, so I've cleared the air. We talked about rookies. The other one, we talked about Devin Levi, but goalies can get you points. I mean, goalies can get you wins. When is a good time to look at getting a goalies, and give us your top 2 or 3 goalies this season?
Right. So, I mean, the top couple of goalies, they're all the Russian guys, right? There's Shesterkin, Sorokin, Vasilevsky. I mean, those guys are ridiculous year after year. After that, I would look at a Jake Ottinger. I feel like the Dallas Stars got even stronger this offseason. They're going to integrate a top prospect, most likely, Logan Stankoven. Keep an eye out for him in late rounds, whether he's on the second or third line. I really like that. They added Matt Duchene. Whether he plays center or wing, I really like that. I feel like Dallas is an even better team than last year on paper when they went to the Western Conference Final and ended up losing to the Golden Knights. But a really strong young core that's just going to keep getting better. So, yeah, those are the 4 best goalies in my opinion. Then there's a bit of a drop-off. So I'm going to go into drafts in my first couple of rounds and look at who goes first. Like if somebody takes Vasilevsky and Sorokin, I'll take Shesterkin shortly after. If those 3 go, maybe I'll take a chance and wait an extra round for Ottinger, but try to get one of those top 4 guys if you can, as long as you're not, I would not take a goalie in the first round. That has burned us in years past. So start in the second round, and maybe rounds 2, 3, and 4, try to get one of those top 4 goalies if you can.
Okay, we're going to move on to a name you've already mentioned a little bit already, but a defenseman that got over 100 points last year, and that's Erik Karlsson and his move to Pittsburgh. My concern is there's a lot of players on Pittsburgh that can get points. There's Crosby, there's Malkin, and I guess there's another guy that likes to play the power play in Chris Letang. So I'm wondering, do you anticipate another monster season for Erik Karlsson, or with all of that talent, the puck's got to get spread around somewhere, is he maybe going to take a step backwards?
Right. We've been talking about quality versus quantity and how many cooks there are in the kitchen all off season long since this trade happened. I think it definitely reopens Pittsburgh's Stanley Cup window. But like we saw a couple of years ago with Brent Burns and Karlsson, like the ceilings fantasy-wise that we were talking about and marveling about, they never actually happened. It was the year when Burns got traded to Carolina that Karlsson stayed healthy finally and popped off and scored 100 points, with a lot of those points coming in, garbage time situations. If the team was down 5-2 or 6-1 or whatever it was. I mean, let's be honest. I think the point total is coming a little bit down for Karlsson this year. The ice time, which is a load off his shoulders, is going to come down with Letang on the same team. But hey, Letang has missed time through the years for different situations. So, if Letang were to get injured, maybe we're talking about a ceiling of Karlsson having 90 or of 100 points. But we have him projected in the high 80s right now, which would probably still lead all defensemen. So, and look for a much better plus minus as well. But again, with all those guys, passing the puck around, maybe he's going to lose out on some of those points that he would have gotten last year with the Sharks.
We're going to get into Coyotes specifically in a second, but before we do, I'm curious, from your point of view, who do you kind of have pegged as a potential breakout player across the NHL this season for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch. I'm really excited about, some of I think like Pavel Zacha in Boston. I mean, he had career highs across the board last year, but you look at that roster compared to what it was last year, right? He'll probably remain with David Pastrnak, but he'll be their number one center unless they make a trade to address that. But they're kind of up against the salary cap and don't have a lot of wiggle room right now after Bergeron and Krejci retired this offseason. So I really like Pavel Zacha as like a full-fledged breakout candidate. For Buffalo, JJ Peterka, I know that they, already have their top-heavy lineup, but Peterka looks like a beast so far in his NHL career. And if he gets a little bit more power play time over maybe a Tuck or a Cousins or someone like that, I could see him having a monster season. And then, when you go deeper down the line, I think, there are a lot of bounce-back candidates on the Calgary Flames. I think maybe Lucas Reichel is another breakout candidate. If it ends up being Taylor Hall, Connor Bedard, and Lucas Reichel, he could be a breakout candidate and maybe go from next to nothing to 60, 65 points in a best case scenario, hitching on to the wagon that is Connor Bedard.
All right. Well, I want to get into Coyotes players specifically with you. And right before we went on air, we were talking about, the big step forward this team has taken, especially in this offseason. So I'm curious from you. I mean, Clayton Keller is kind of the obvious player when you look at the Coyotes roster as someone with fantasy value. But from your point of view, who else on this team is someone that, if you're drafting fantasy, you should look to on the Coyotes?
I actually like the 1-2 punch they have at center, assuming Cooley makes the team, and how well Barrett Hayton played down the stretch last year, near point per game player over the last month or so of the season. I think he had 18 in his final 20 or something like that. So playing with Keller and Nick Schmaltz. If Schmaltz stays healthy, I mean, this is a dangerous, robust Coyotes offense that I think a lot of teams out there might underestimate. I know they were a pretty competitive home team last year, but I could see them catching a lot of teams by surprise, especially in the Eastern Conference, and winning some big road games this year to get them into that fringe conversation for a second wild card spot in the Western Conference with teams like St. Louis and Nashville and Calgary that have been definitely trending down in recent years. So yeah, I would try to get a piece of that first power play. Like I said, Durzi, Cooley, Barrett Hayton. I like how they kind of supplemented the rest of their roster with guys like Dumba and guys like Zucker. I mean, these are high quality players that are going to make this team way more competitive right from the first puck drop in October early on. So yeah, I think they're going to catch a lot of people by surprise. And Clayton Keller, you mentioned, I mean, for us to have a Coyotes player in the top 50 overall certainly says a lot. They haven't had many in that realm, but Clayton Keller certainly deserves it. We have him projected for like 80 points this year, so we're taking him very, very seriously.
Well, that brings up one more name that hasn't been mentioned a lot. He finished fourth in the Calder voting last season. It was a rookie on this team who put up a lot of points, a lot of assists, and that's Matias Maccelli. Is he a guy that might be able to sneak into a later round, but still going to get you some value?
Definitely. The job he did in a secondary role, second power play, putting up that type of power play points, double digits, was really impressive as a rookie. So I'm interested to see, do they maybe even split up that top line trio and have, Maccelli elevated to play with Keller and Cooley, and then, have a nice, strong second line with Hayton and Schmaltz and try to keep that type of chemistry going from the tail end of last season. So, and again, there are like 3 fantasy relevant defensemen here in the mix, which we've seen in years past when they had, Ekman Larson and Yandel and Chikrin and Gostisbehere. And like, it's not unheard of to see a lot of fantasy appeal or production, regardless of what expectations were from the Coyotes defensemen. But yeah, you have Moser, you have Valimaki, and of course the big offseason acquisition in Durzi. Durzi's another guy, just like Maccelli, where he was on the second power play in LA and really was lighting it up for them. So now he doesn't have Doughty in front of him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own blue line to anchor and play with some young studs like Keller and Cooley. Could take him to the next level for fantasy.
So last question before we let you go, and it's about the Coyotes goalies, who Coyotes goalies historically overperform in some regard, and this year they're going with Kirill Vejmelka and Connor Ingram, who both had pretty solid seasons last year. Obviously, they're not going to be your Vasilevskis, your Sorokins, etc. But as a secondary goalie, do you think it's worth going after one of these guys, or probably stay away, given the fact that the Coyotes, maybe their goal differential wasn't in the green last year?
Not their fault, by the way.
I mean, if he gets you like a .915 save percentage playing 50 games, like he played 50 games, started 49 last year, only had 18 wins, but did have 3 shutouts. And that's what I think we've seen from guys like Vejmelka and Ingram, especially last season. They stood on their head in a lot of games. Those home games at the ASU arena, I mean, they were like really acrobatic and very impressive based on a lot of people didn't think they would do so well in the goaltending department. So again, if you're a volume starter like Vejmelka playing that much in fantasy, you could actually be really valuable if you exceed expectations and you're taken, maybe in the last round of your fantasy draft, or maybe even picked up off the fantasy waiver wire, right? I wouldn't hesitate to take Vejmelka as like a 3rd or 4th fantasy goalie. And you never know, if you have another guy deal with an injury, you're going to want a guy playing for a competitive team, even if they don't make the playoffs. We have Arizona, I think, +7 or 8 wins compared to what they had last year, which would put them among the most improved teams this offseason, along with Columbus, who hopefully will be healthy. And they have a couple of young studs and Fantilli, like I mentioned, so into the mix. So right now, like big picture, the Coyotes have improved themselves maybe more than any team this offseason, but nobody's talking about it as much as they should, I feel.
That is fine. I will say this. It is. We live in a bubble here in Arizona. But clearly, it's called the Coyote Show. So we talk about Coyotes, and we see that they're making strides in the right direction. It's really nice to hear from a national perspective that someone else recognizes that the Coyotes are doing some good things.
Yep, definitely. Well, Pete, we can't thank you enough. This has been really great insight. Everyone can follow Pete at NHL Jensen. That's your at, right, on Twitter /X, whatever it is these days. But if you need any fantasy advice, and Pete obviously has the fantasy podcast as well, so lots of great insight there. But Pete, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate your time, man.
Definitely appreciate you having me on. Yeah, check out nhl.com/fantasy. We got our cheat sheet, our projections for each team.
I always have it open.
Yeah, print that.
I always have it open.
I print it because I'm old. You guys just put it on your phone.
Take the sleeper list into your draft, take your bargain list and all stuff like that, and cross names off our top 250 as they're drafted. And also check out the Instagram account for NHL Fantasy and myself, NHL Jensen, for a lot of videos leading up to the season. But thanks again for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Awesome. Well, great insight from Pete. Also, great praise for the Coyotes.
We always I think they're making nice moves, but that was real, and that puts the Coyotes in the mid 80s for points, maybe mid to high 80s for points. Wow,
great stuff.
How about that? And doesn't it get you in the mood to start gambling?
It does.
It does me. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah. And
player props.
And by the way, just before we get into that, I know there's a lot of people who watch the show interested in fantasy hockey. We are going to do a diehard fantasy hockey league because there's so many people. We might have multiple, and there are people in our Discord who are taking on arranging this. So just stay tuned if you're interested in doing fantasy hockey with your fellow diehards. It will be happening. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm locking in the over on points for the Coyotes. Pete has me fired up.
Confident.
I'm fired up to talk about André Tourigny, which we'll do here in just a couple minutes. But on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, book it. I'm running to bet the over on Coyotes point totals. I'm super excited. I was like, what are you doing answering your phone? And if you want to put some money down for a future on the Coyotes on the BetMGM Sportsbook app.
His bet of the week?
Hit. Yep. Hit. And yesterday on PHNX Bets Daily, Shane took Josh Rojas to hit a home run at plus 825 for the Mariners. He's hit 2 home runs this season. And he got it last night. So
it's real.
PHNX Best Daily.
The fire is real.
Tune
in.
But you can sign up for the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Use the bonus code PHNX, and there's a few different offers depending on where you live. But for our Arizona audience, place your first bet offer and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If it loses, you can check out the show notes for full details. And now you can listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-522-4700 Nevada. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Kansas, Nevada, New York, or Ontario.
You know, fantasy hockey, the drafts are so fun. And my favorite thing to do before a draft is like get myself all set up.
You need snacks. Lots of snacks.
You need drinks.
Yep.
Go to Circle K before your fantasy hockey draft. Grab yourself a Polar Pop. Grab yourself some chips. I'm like on the spectrum of sweet versus salty. I actually lean salty.
Me too.
I love a salty snack.
100% I lean salty. Without a doubt.
Circle K chips, phenomenal. So head to Circle K before your fantasy hockey draft. And we're really excited about the Circle K Inner Circle, which is a free program you can join just by downloading the Circle K app. You save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. You get every 6 free on a selection of Circle K products, pizza, coffee, ice cold fountain drinks, etc. It's a free membership program. And it's completely new. Join the Circle K Inner Circle today for free by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details.
And that brings me to the point we talked about you doing a die-hard fantasy league. And we got Brady. We hear from Brady all the time in the diehards, and we hear from Joel all the time. Both diehards, both saying, hey, I don't know anything, or I'm a newbie. Can I be in the... Buddy, Joel, you don't need a newbie league. Here's the beauty about this. That's why Pete was on the show. You go print Pete's list.
They do the work for you.
They do the work for you. And worst case, pick a guy you like. Like, oh, I like that guy. I root for him. And when that team's on, I can root for him.
I know that name.
Yes, I know that name. I like their jerseys.
Tage Thompson led me to success last year, and it was the first time I had played fantasy hockey in a decade.
And I will say this, Joel and Brady, there is a lot less pressure on you to perform well in a fantasy league than it is for the three of us. Like, we have to be. And we don't. Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to suck. Okay, I had to get that out there. Yeah. So please join. It's fun. We can compete against each other, give you a little trash talking in the Discord. That'll be fun. So,
yep.
Stay tuned.
And yeah, really great insight from Pete. Again, high praise of the Coyotes. And Petey, a lot of that high praise has to do with the man on the bench. André Tourigny, we buried the lead. André Tourigny is back. Bear is back. And this morning, well, I guess Craig reported it last night, but this morning it was officially announced that Coyotes head coach André Tourigny received a 3-year contract extension with the team. So after this year, it'll be 3 after that. So it's 4 technically. But
math at U of A.
I mean, listen,
nailed it.
3 plus 1. Got it. Petey, this kind of felt like the last thing that was hanging over the offseason. Arena aside, this was kind of the last big thing, and it's done before the start of the season. Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think this was really important. And I think it was really important, the timing, too. I thought my fear was going to be, and if you might recall this with other coaches, I know with Rick Tocchet, it got into December and January. And I'll tell you, I've seen other coaches where they're in their lame duck season. And you know what the answer is? Oh, I'm worried about the game today. I'm not thinking about bullshit. You're worrying about your contract. And so for them to get this done in August was incredibly important for what they want to accomplish this year. So I think the timing is huge. Getting him here and locked up, I think is incredibly important. You see the belief in these players and what they think of him. We've heard it over and over and over again.
Every single guy we've talked to this summer.
And so I think it's imperative that they got it locked up. I'll be honest, and I said it on the show, I was afraid. I was afraid with Shane Doan and his relationship with André Tourigny. And Shane's a big piece of the reason he's here with their relationship with Hockey Canada. I was concerned with his contract expiring and Sheldon Keefe's contract expiring in Toronto at the same time. there was a concern because Toronto is the center of the hockey universe. They can spend as much money as they need to spend. There was a fear. So now that fear is put aside. He wants to be a part of what he's already started to build here. I think he's taken ownership and pride in what he's done here. So I think this is a huge step and so important that it's done before game one.
Absolutely. It is interesting to think back to when they hired him, because we talk about the coaching carousel all the time and how coaches keep getting recycled. And when André Tourigny stepped into this role, I think a lot of people at first said, who? I did. Then you look at his resume, Hockey Canada, the OHL. He's had a ton of success. He's been an assistant coach for the Colorado Avalanche, and he steps in and brings a fresh perspective. And, that first year of the rebuild, nobody was expecting anything from this team. And frankly, the team performed as expected. But then you go from year one to year two, and you see the huge jump that's taken. 23-point improvement from 2021 to 22, or 22 to 23, 73 points last season. We all know about Mullet Magic. And not only do you see that point improvement, which granted, you can say what you want about the Coyotes finishing sixth last, not getting in the top 3 in this draft. We've gone over that to death. But you look at what every single player who signed here as a free agent, who got traded here, Sean Durzi yesterday, Clayton Keller, every single one always mentions Bear and how much they like playing for him. And that speaks volumes. You talk all the time about the league is small and guys talk. If there's, look at what happened in Calgary with Daryl Sutter. If there's a guy that's disliked, it's going to have a huge impact versus you look at Arizona and all the issues that there are, which they don't have an arena. There's a lot of reasons to not come here, but André Tourigny is a huge reason to come here. And I'm just so relieved that there's security that he's here this year and 3 more years after.
I've been around a long time in this league, and I've known a lot of coaches, worked for a lot of coaches, and I don't know if I've ever seen the universal love for the head coach that this guy has.
Really?
And it's amongst not just the players, but it's the staff and it's the people that are close to the organization. And you go, this guy's great. And he gives off that vibe of, this is a fun place to be. And I tell you what, being in a locker room for a team that sucks and they lose a lot is absolute misery. It sucks going to work. It sucks going to meetings and practice. It's terrible. But you look what André Tourigny was able to do his first year here, and guys were smiling, happy, relieved, playing with no pressure and enjoying their teammates, and they all battle for each other, getting that accountability. It's absolutely impressive. But I do want to clear one thing up, because this gets tossed out and bandied out a lot, is the word culture. And anytime a coach leaves, a new coach comes in and says, well, we need to change the culture. Well, I've been here from Gretzky to Tippett to Tuckett, and I unfortunately didn't get to work for Bear. And you hear people, well, he's got to change the culture. To me, it's a really frustrating term, because do you think Dave Tippett, when he was here coaching, wanted to lose? Well, hell no. Do you think he wanted people to hate it here? No. So when Rick Tocchet comes in, he can't say, well, I want to change the culture. It's different. It's a different culture. It's a different way of doing things. It's a different feel that they bring to the locker room. It's not like, I've got to get rid of everything that Rick Tocchet did or everything that Dave Tippett did. You just want to create an atmosphere, and I think that's what Bear has done, where people are relaxed, comfortable, and happy to be there. And that's what today's hockey player needs. I believe that they need to get patted on the back and feel good about what they're doing and communicate and honesty and open relationships. All that is true. And so I think with Bear being able to do that, that's what I think culture means. That's what the winning culture is. I think you can't say Rick Tocchet didn't have a winning culture. He won Stanley Cups. It's a winning culture. So I want to be careful with that term, but I do want to say that he's made an atmosphere where players are happy to be there, want to be a part of this, and they're accountable to their teammate. That's why I fear, and I've already stated publicly, so you can clip it, and I have the receipts, I think Columbus is going to have a problem with Mike Babcock. I think the first 20 games, they're coming out of the gate. Columbus, everybody's going to go, oh shit, look at Columbus, they're for real. And then it's going to get hard, and they're going to lose games, and it's going to be misery. And they're not going to be there in the end. All because of their coach. And I think if the Coyotes can make the playoffs, and I don't have them projected there, but if they do, a lot of it's going to be because of the belief the players have in André Tourigny.
Yeah. Another thing that Bear brings is, because of his experience coaching in the CHL, coaching the youths in Hockey Canada. He and this new wave of coaches, like there's the Mike Babcocks and there's the André Tourigny's, and he adjusts his coaching to his players.
Yeah, and he said that.
Yeah, and he has said that. And I think you look at this what's coming up the pipeline. There's a lot of young players, and we talk about the future. We talk about drafts all the time, but all these young players come in. It's not like they're gonna succeed right away. You need a coach who has experience coaching young players and is gonna have the patience to coach them and know what's best for them. And I feel like in that case too, especially over these next 3 years, because you have Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther this year, and you look down the pipeline. I mean, even Simashev is slated in that 3-year window, and Boot and whoever else is in the pipeline. André Tourigny, he could be the right guy for that too, because of just his experience with younger players.
And I think one of the big things about this summer specifically is the ability for this team to get free agents. And you're talking about the ability to attract and recruit free agents to a city that doesn't have a building. Again, that's amazing to me. So what are you selling? You're selling the dream. And I think to a man, what we're hearing is the good news and the relationship that they have with the coach already. Like, he's calling them, he's making those contacts where they fit. There's people know, like you said, players talk. And André Tourigny has now made this team, gosh, I'd like to play for that guy. And so I think that bodes extremely well for the ability to attract free agents and recruit to get players into this market.
Yeah. And, we've been lucky enough to speak one-on-one with Bear. And like every day I walk away from any conversation and I'm like, he could be a life coach.
Yeah, he's unreal.
He's an incredible motivator. Yep. And I think it's also important to have someone like that when you play for a team over the last 2 seasons that like has had no expectations, has gone through a lot of shit, frankly, to have somebody who is always striving to get better. And I think another word that I think of about him is like humility. He doesn't think that he knows all, and he admits that, and he leans heavily on his assistant coaches, which we should also mention. One of the things Craig reported earlier this month was that when the deal was close, he wanted his assistants to get extended too, and that's why it took until now for this to happen. So there's no announcement yet, but the assistant coaches are expected to be extended as well, and I think that speaks highly of his character.
Do you know what that means inside that locker room? Here's the thing: the players make a lot of money. They have great contracts. They care about the periphery, but they got to make their money. Mm-hmm. When a head coach comes in and says, "Hey, we need to take care of my assistants. We need to take care of the guy that's sharpening the skates. We need to make sure we take care of the guy that keeps these players healthy in the medical room." Do you know how hard those guys will work for that coach? And do you know what an atmosphere that creates for the people that are around the players a lot, like the coaches and the trainers? Like, they're with the players all the time. And I tell you what, if they're grumpy and they're in a miserable mood and they talk shit and they're pissed off about life, guess what? That permeates through the whole room. So when you make them happy, it makes the players happy. You make the players happy, you can win more games. It's a really, really smart thing. But for him to put his career on the line and for his, put his money where his mouth is, you're taking care of them first. You know where we saw that last contract was in Rod Brindamore, did that in Carolina. Well, they did pretty good.
Yeah. So talk about a good culture in Carolina.
Because they did the exact same thing that Rod Brindamore did in a management team that, honestly, traditional for not paying people in Carolina. Well, he said, you pay him or I don't work here anymore. And so now imagine how hard those guys worked for him. I think Bear has done the same thing here, and that goes miles and miles and miles for getting everybody bought into what you're trying to do, not just the players, but the staff and the coaching staff as well. So I'm impressed at the way he went through that contract negotiations.
Absolutely. I want to talk more about what's next, because we've talked a lot about what's happened up until this point. But before we do, for Bear, he's here in Arizona. He talked to us too about loving his routine. He goes to the same store and does the same things. I hope he has the same sunglasses, and I hope whatever they are, that they're Shady Rays.
Yeah. He's a wraparound guy.
Well,
I'm trying to pitch wraparounds to everybody. Look at me, he bald that wraparounds. Scary. Sorry.
I mean, Shady Rays, they have something for everyone. They have a ton of different styles, men's and women's styles, colors in all of those styles, multiple. So if you haven't just scrolled Shady Rays website, I highly recommend doing it. You'll be shocked at A, the variety, and B, the prices. Sunglasses do not have to break your bank. They can be stylish and affordable. And the best part about Shady Rays is they really stand by their product. So if you don't love them, you can exchange or return free within 30 days, which I really appreciate as well. I love my Shady Rays. I throw them in my bag. They're very durable. And I wear them every single day. Every single day. And they look just like Ray-Bans, but they're like a fraction of the price.
Yes.
So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. You can go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. Petey, I feel like it's been it hasn't, because I just thought of the last time you and I were in here, but I do like being in the commish. I
know, because all the stuff.
It gives post-game vibes.
Yeah, it does.
But I love our commish studio, because if you look behind us, there's all these, bobbleheads and trinkets, and all of that is from Foco. Foco hooked it up for the commish studio. They have great stuff. And listen, college football, it's right around the corner. They have a ton.
You know what I saw?
What?
I don't know what you kids call them today, but overalls. Do you know what overalls are?
Yes, I do know.
I don't know. Did you know I used to wear overalls to school? Like that was a literal thing. Osh gosh bagosh. But Foco has overalls in your favorite team colors. Yeah, I could see DP rocking the orange. I could
see Sean wearing
rocking
overalls.
the orange.
Like one thing unbuttoned.
But no shirt. No shirt with the overalls. Buddy, he'd be rocking it. Fire, a little orange.
I feel like a farmer.
Yeah.
Farmer Sean.
Fire. Going to the
I'm more on Leah's overall vibe.
You have a shirt, and then you undo one of them, so it's like
so it hangs.
That's fashion.
We did all kinds of shit like
fashion.
Foco, they have more than just bobbleheads. They have clothing, they have shoes, they have Christmas ornament. I mean, you'll be surprised. So just go online, foco.com. That's FOCO.com. They have your back for Arizona sports, and use the code PHNX when you check out. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHNX for 10% off. PD, I want to talk about what's next, because André Tourigny came into this situation not having a ton of expectations on his shoulders. He inherited a tanking team, and we saw obviously the huge point improvement from year 1 to year 2.
Do you get nervous when our boss walks in?
No.
I do.
That's just
He scares the hell out of me.
Oh, now he's coming.
He does.
On the headset.
He's scary.
All right. What do you got?
I don't like what's going on in Discord right now.
What's going on in Discord?
Apparently, in our son's Discord, people are slandering Espo and telling people, well, if you want the lighter side of things, you should go over and check out the Coyotes,
go to the Coyotes
show in
it's
Discord.
All rainbows and sunshine.
No. We're not having this today.
See,
Espo said the light side, if only you knew Petey and Craig. #Snark.
I had to go. Join the friendly Discord.
They're making memes out of Espo in the Suns Discord and Saul. Saul yawning.
It's on fire. If you're on the Discord, jump in the Suns Discord right now and check out what's going on in there. There are some memes. I don't know how to make a meme. I wish I didn't know how to make a meme.
I'll teach you after the show. It's very easy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're talking about the future.
No, yeah. So future, low expectations, year 1, huge improvement, year 1 to year 2. But where do you go from here? I mean, the next steps, it's not easy, and he's admitted that as well. So what's next?
See, this is where it gets hard.
Yeah.
Because the expectations when he came here, that first season, their expectations were to lose and get last. You know how easy it is to get last? Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like, I think Sean and I could probably coach and get last. Well, matter of fact, I guarantee it. But the point is that with the low expectations, it makes it easier, the less pressure. And then last year, I think, again, the pressure was off that team. It was a search for Bedard. And I think as a group, they banded together, and it's us against the world. And I think that was their fighting cry, like, hey, we're not getting last. We're better than that. Now it's interesting. You pull in really good players. You've got legit NHL players that are trying to win and are still in the terms of Dursey, he's 24. So I think now the expectations are much, much higher. And with expectations, now comes pressure. You've given a coach more term, more money. Well, get more pressure. So when it's easy is when no one's looking at you. Now everybody's looking. Like, okay, everybody says you're great. Everybody says you get this culture. Everybody says you get everybody along and you can push teams along. Well, It's time to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that pressure. I know when you look at his last couple of seasons in juniors, blew everybody out of the water. Like, okay, yeah, we're good. We know we're good, and we're gonna win. And I think so. He's been in an atmosphere where he's been good and been able to get that kind of a record. It was a really good winning record. But I think here now, people expect this team to be better, so they better be better. The pressure is on him. I think, and that's what we're going to try to continue to do on this show, is we're going to say they're not ready for the playoffs. They're not there. Can they? Hey, you never know when the goalie gets hot, and guys have career years and all of those things. But those kind of expectations aren't on Bear yet. But now is the time. He's got to prove he can turn this ragtag bunch of guys from 2 years ago into a perennial playoff team, and that's where the pressure is.
And especially with the moves that were made in this offseason, because it went from year one, you have, I mean, no offense to these guys, but like Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, guys at the twilight of their career. And then you have, young players. Like, there was such that juxtaposition. And then the gap got bridged a little bit last year with players more like Nick Bukestad, Troy Stetcher type. And now you take one step further, and it's Matt Dumba, Sean Dursey, Jason Zucker. Yeah. Those are all guys who are going to improve your team. And I mean, Pete Jensen said it, like, they project the Coyotes right now to have the biggest improvement of any team in the NHL. That's the expectation to me that's on Bear's shoulders right now. Like, if they have to be even better than last year, because if they take a huge dip, like last year we looked at the roster and said, this might be the worst roster we've ever seen, and they outperformed that. Well, now the expectation's higher, and nobody is sitting there saying they need to make the playoffs, and like if they don't, it's a tragedy. That's not the expectation, but the expectation is improvement. And I don't know, I feel like they're expected to take it to step
Do you know
forward.
where they're getting more pressure from too, Leah? And I think we haven't touched on this a lot over our shows over the summer, and we're going to as the season approaches. But ownership, and here's why. This ownership has shown a commitment to this rebuild, right? And they've been, hey, we're willing to bite the bullet, and we're willing to lose. And I think that changed. I think that changed this season. I think when you look at it, this team is not built now to get a top 5 draft pick. They're not. I don't think this is a bottom 3, bottom 5 team. And that tells me that's a signaling from ownership that, okay, it was okay. We got a couple of good draft picks, but it's time. Mm-hmm. And now, not only is it time, we'll give you some money. We can sign Cooley and Zucker, and we get all these guys signed. And we'll even give you money, coach. But you better win. And I think now this is the first time that he's going to get that push from management and ownership that, wins matter now, and we're going to evaluate you based on wins. So I think that is definitely going to add pressure, and maybe not as much this year, but when the new contract kicks in and the following year, there's going to be pressure. This team has to make the playoffs in one of these coming years during this contract.
So do you feel that making the playoffs in the 3-year span is what he needs to do to earn the contract?
I do. I don't expect it this year. I don't expect it next year. But by the second year of the new contract and the last year of that new contract, he even if he just gets in and you get beat in the first round, you have to show those little steps that you're progressing towards the ultimate goal, which one is the Stanley Cup, but 2 is a perennial playoff team. You can't get there until you make the playoffs. And I think this team is going to have to learn to get there. And once they get there, then they can talk about staying there. I think it's imperative for him to be a coach after that 3-year contract. And when that's getting ready to expire, for him to be re-signed here in Arizona, he has to have made the playoffs by that last season.
So one other question. Do you foresee, and obviously we can't predict the future, and who knows if it's going to be, if he would want to move on at that point, can you see him being a coach it's so rare to have tenured coaches anymore. John Cooper and Mike Sullivan are the 2 longest head coaches in the NHL, and then after them it's 1 to 2, 3 years is the most. Do you see André Tourigny being the coach of the future here, a guy who will be here for a long time? It's hard. I mean, you can't say
this league is so fickle.
You can't say
it goes in streaks. Like, there was a time when Rick Tocchet was here, when you went around the league and you looked at how tenured the coaches were. And they went through a whole summer where no coaches got fired. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, you look at it now, it's just fire. Well, this guy's not happy. And if he can keep the atmosphere in the locker room to where the players are happy and they feel they're getting better and making a statement towards winning and improving, I think he can stay. I think the key is you have to keep the players happy, and the way to do that is putting an atmosphere in like Bear's done and getting them in a direction to win. So yes, I think he can. The problem is it is so fickle. And when an owner and a manager go, things aren't going well, general managers don't fire themselves. So somebody has to go first, and it's the head coach. He might get Bill Armstrong might get 2 coaches. He might get to fire 2 coaches and work on a third before they even start looking at, Bill Armstrong is maybe we got to look at him. So yes, at some point, could they fire him? Yeah, this league's tough. Yeah. It's fickle, and you get a few losses and a few unhappy players and guys wanting trades. And the first place that management and ownership, instead of looking in a mirror, is definitely going to be looking at the head coach. So I think he can do it because I see the plan for management. I think
he has the potential to be a guy like John Cooper and Mike Sullivan.
I do too, because they're building towards something, and I think they've done it as a group, and they've done it together, not just the team, but the coaching staff, management, and ownership. They're trying to do this all together, so I absolutely can see him getting through the rebuild and getting to the playoffs, and then once he does that, he's their guy.
And then how they do in the playoffs will be the real test, because you mentioned it that first year, you just got to get in. There. But then if you're making if you are a playoff team, then you'll be judged on how you're performing.
Yeah, because you can win Stanley Cups and get fired.
Yeah.
Like it happens.
Yeah.
And so you get concerned. Like you look at Gerard Gallant gets to the Stanley Cup Finals with Vegas and gets fired. Then he gets the Rangers to play, fired. Like buddy, there's no guarantee. And it's going to be difficult because it's a hard job to keep. The first day you become a coach is the day closer to the day you get fired. But I do believe in what he's doing, and I do believe in what the franchise and Bill Armstrong are doing too.
Yep. Well, really exciting stuff. A lot of the stuff Craig actually asked Coach Tourigny about earlier in the summer in an extensive Q&A that you can find at gophnx.com right now. It's from July 7th. So if you just click on the Coyotes tab on the website and scroll, I think it's 1 page back. Go ahead and read that. I was scrolling through it right now. He asked him straight up, a lot of coaches that start a rebuild are not there to end it. And he gave, of course, an ever articulate answer, because that's what Bear does. And we're going to have the chance to catch up with Bear in about 10 minutes here to get his thoughts on the contract extension as well. So stay tuned to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel for that. But just tons of great stuff on the website always. Craig has weekly diehard only content. I know there's a mailbag on the horizon. So if you want to read that, you'll have to become a diehard at gophnx.com. You can grab a shirt from the locker or hat when you sign up, like the one Petey is rocking right now. And you can also get 20% off on events and merch and access to our Discord, as Saul mentioned, where the Suns channel is currently bickering. And meanwhile, in the Coyotes channel, I don't know, we're always talking about
sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, clearly. So join the Discord. It's a ton of fun. But Petey, before we give everyone an insight into what's going on the rest of the week, do you have any final thoughts? Sorry.
No, I think this is an important step in the whole process of what this rebuild has been about. Yeah. I think this is a huge step for this team and organization to say, hey, we are still trying to succeed here in the Valley. So I think it was an important piece.
Yep, absolutely. But we're lucky to have a coach here ourselves. And if you missed Monday's show, we've been doing deep dives into players every Monday. And by that, I mean, Petey is putting in hours and hours, and that is not an exaggeration, of watching video and putting together his Petey's Puck Talk. So if you haven't watched the most recent Petey's Puck Talk or any of them, they're on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. We're going to have them on the website here shortly, but it's a really extensive breakdown this week. It was Nick Schmaltz. Go on the website. We tweeted it out as well, and watch Petey's Puck Talk, because you're not going to get any analysis like this anywhere else. And we have a coach in our fold, so we're very grateful.
Thanks. And there's a new one coming Monday. We're doing JJ
Mosier. So.
And a couple other things. I was busy this morning.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Say, we're working on something that, stay tuned, could take us a couple weeks to build. This actually have like shooting locations, and it's interesting.
Yeah, we're on location.
I'm doing another one on Friday. And I want to point out something Dan brought up in the chat. I tweeted it out yesterday. The high school hockey has a seeding tournament, which they try to figure out what division all these teams are going to play in. Friday night starts at the Ice Den in Scottsdale. Saturday afternoon and evening, and all day Sunday at the Ice Den on all 3 rinks. So you want to get out of the heat, get out of the humidity, and watch high school hockey all for free. And there's game after game after game after game on all 3 sheets. It's a really cool atmosphere. It's exciting. You see all these kids playing for their school. I am going to be there on Sunday. I have Dan. If I see you there, I will definitely say hi. Stop in. If you're anywhere near the ice end and want to get that hockey fix, stop in and check out a little bit of high school hockey this weekend.
Absolutely. We're getting closer. August is almost over.
I know.
That's just the last hurdle of the offseason we have to clear, really. And we have a really exciting rest of our week ahead. Jason Zucker will be joining the show tomorrow.
Do we know where he is right now physically?
No, we'll find out.
Does he spend his summers in Minnesota?
I think.
I'm going to ask.
This might be.
That might be my first and only question, and I might walk off.
Yeah.
Are you in Minnesota? Oh, that's cool.
Lord. And on Friday, we've been teasing it, but.
Are we going to tell?
Yeah.
Because Craig's not here?
Yeah. So he doesn't get to be part of it. Sorry, Craig. So Saturday is International Dog Day.
Oh, Saturday is?
So in honor and in celebration of that, on Friday, we are doing an entire show about dogs, and more specifically, the dogs of the Arizona Coyotes organization. Craig has a story that he has been working on for weeks, dropping Friday morning about just all the dogs of all the players and coaches and staff on the Arizona Coyotes. And we are going to be talking about dogs. So if you're a dog lover, get ready. Come Friday. Pictures, stories. It's going to be so fun. The ultimate Friday fun day for real.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. I have a dog, as we know. And I tell you, these players were more excited to talk about their pets than they were about
Craig
hockey.
said he's never gotten faster responses.
Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about my dog?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Power play? No. Dog? Yes. And there's some really beautiful dogs. So tune in on Friday.
Going to be a lot of fun.
Tune in every day.
Tune in every day. PHNX Sports YouTube channel. We're here 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, every single day. So subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you like to listen on audio, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. And be sure to leave us a review there as well. I go in and read them, and it means a lot to see what people write. But you can follow all of us on Twitter. Follow Craig at Craig S. Morgan. Follow Petey at S. Peters Hockey. You can follow me at Leah Merrill. Follow Sean at Sean_DePaz. And follow the show at PHNX_Coyotes. Thank you again to Pete Jensen. We'll see everybody tomorrow for Jason Zucker live at 11 a.m. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.